Hi everyone, a very warm welcome to Infosectrain. And today we are here for the webinar on interview prep series for penetration testers. My name is Ashish Dhyani and I will be the speaker for this webinar. So before starting to this webinar, let me introduce myself. My name is Ashish Dhyani and I'm working as a trainer and penetration tester at Infosectrain. And it's been a decent amount of time that I have been into the field of cybersecurity. Now, the agenda for our masterclass will be interview preparation strategy. There will be top scenario based question on the topics penetration testings, red teaming and pen testing, vulnerabilities and their impact, methodology and reporting, ethical hacking and legal consideration. And then there will be a quick questionnaire at the end. So whatever questions you will be having, you can ask your questions at that time, right? So let's get started. Now, the very first question that we have is describe a challenging penetration test you conducted. What was your approach and what were the key findings? How will you answer to that question? So, in here, what we have to do, we have to define our pen test. That there might be some pen test that you conducted. Now, let's say the the pen test that I did, right? The most challenging pen tests are black box pen test, right? Everyone knows black box pen test, right? Black box means that you are not having information about the target. You are just having name that this is the company. Let's say I'm saying you have infosectrain.com. Now perform the test on infosectrain.com. Now, black box can be of two types, blind and double blind, right? So what is blind? What is double blind? Blind means that yes, you are doing pen test and you are from the external network, you are doing the pen test and you are trying to find out information. But in double blind, what happens that your target IT staff is not aware that a penetration testing is going on. So let's say I'm doing a penetration testing for any of the organization. So the IT staff of that organization is not aware. So whenever you are sending some data or you are running some commands, there may be alerts and they might block your IP or they might block you as well, right? So in double blind, you have to stay more stealthy, right? You don't want to be, you don't want to get caught, right, by the SOC team, by the monitoring team, anyone, right? So that's double blind. Now, how will we answer this question? So let's, what I will do, if someone asks this question to me, I'll describe a, an external pen test, right? So let's say a real-time scenario which I did, that I will tell you that I did a pen test for a mid-sized financial service company. Now, my goal was to identify and exploit the vulnerabilities in their external facing infrastructure to gain unauthorized access. Now, what my approach was, first, I did reconnaissance. Now, reconnaissance means gathering information. So, I used OSINT techniques, open source intelligence techniques, to gather the information about the company's digital footprint. Then, I also used tools like Shodan or Senses, right? And DNS dumpster to to find out the IP ranges and the subdomains. Then I conducted port scanning through the tools like Nmap or Nessus to find out open ports and the services. Then I did vulnerability scanning, right? Now in vulnerability scanning, we use the tools like Nessus and OpenVAS to perform comprehensive vulnerability scans. Then we manually identified or verified the results to eliminate the false positives. Then we performed manual testing, right? So in manual testing, we focused on the services like web applications, right? Then we just check the VPN endpoints, right? Email servers. These are the things that we checked, right? And we use the tools like Burp Suite for web app testing and Metasploit framework to ex perform the exploit attempts. Then we also did social engineering, and that was the most challenging part of the pen test, because we conducted the phishing campaigns for targeting the employees, and it was very tough to make the employees fall in the trap because they already had this social awareness training recently, and but some of them fall in the trap, and after that we try to gain physical access through impersonation or tailgating. So that was our pen test. Now the findings, what were the key findings? So for that I'll answer that there was one outdated VPN software. So we discovered an outdated, let's say, Pulse secure VPN, right? That appliance was vulnerable to CVE 2019 and 11510. This was the vulnerability which was found in the VPN appliance. We successfully exploited this vulnerability to gain the initial access to the internal network. Then we found weak password policies. Now, for weak password policies, because of that, we cracked multiple user accounts using password spraying attacks, right? Some of them, like they were using very guessable passwords, like summer 2023 or user name, and let's say someone joined in 2022, so 2022, like that, right? Easily guessable passwords were there. Then there was a web server which was unpatched, right? In that web server there was a vulnerability 2021 41773. This was the CV which was to which that Apache basically server was vulnerable. So we exploited that vulnerability to achieve remote code execution on the web server. Then there were insecure file permissions. So after getting the access of the web server, we found that configuration file was there with plain text database credentials. Right, we use those credentials to access and exfiltrate the sensitive customer data. Then network segmentation was not done. So once I was inside the network, I was able to move laterally in the network with very less resistance, right? Then we gained the access to the critical systems due to flat network architecture. And as I said, phishing was successful. So around 15% of employees, they fell for the phishing campaign. We got their credentials, and many of them, they were having high privileged accounts, right? So in conclusion, the pen test revealed several critical vulnerabilities in the company's security posture, and the combination of outdated software, weak passwords, and lack of network segmentation allowed me for a full compromise of the network, right? And the success of social engineering attack highlighted the need for improved security awareness training, right? So we presented the findings to the client along with the details and the remediation steps. So we just gave some findings, and their remediations were immediate patching of vulnerable systems, implementation of stronger password policies, multi-factor authentication, improved network segmentation and access control, give security awareness training to the employees again, and strengthen the physical security measures. So that was how I conducted a pen test, and these were the things I did. Clear? So that's how you will answer this question. Now let's move to the next one. Great. So how will we answer this question? Vulnerability name, CV details, exploitation steps with screenshot, reach the vendor. Great. So for web application pen test, first thing it is asking that a time, right, where you found a vulnerability, right? So critical vulnerability. So I'll say that during a comprehensive pen test for a large healthcare provider, let's say, right, I found a very severe vulnerability in their patient portal application. The web portal allowed the patients to access their medical records or schedule the appointments or communicate with the healthcare providers. The critical vulnerability I found was IDOR, insecure direct object reference vulnerability. Right now, this flaw in the application, it allowed any authenticated user to access and potentially modify other patients' medical records, right? Just by manipulating the record ID in the URL, right? So while testing the functionality to view personal medical records, I noticed the URL structure included sequential record ID. And out of curiosity, I just manually changed the ID, and I was shocked to find I could access another patient's complete medical history, like including the sensitive diagnosis of that person, prescribed medications, and personal information. So there should be immediate actions, right? Should be taken. So verification, first thing. So I immediately verified the vulnerability by testing with multiple IDs to ensure it wasn't an isolated incident. That means only one or two IDs are working, others are not working. Then quickly documentation was done. Right. So I documented the issues, including the screenshots, the steps to reproduce, and potential impact. Then scope assessment. So I quickly assessed the scope of the vulnerability. And in this case, what was the scope? It affected all the patients in the record system. So potentially millions of individuals were under the scope, right? Then exploitation risk. Right. So exploitation risk means I considered the ease of exploitation. So the attacker with basic web knowledge, that attacker can potentially write a script to harvest massive amounts of patient data. Right. Then how we handle the situation, we give immediate notification. So given the severity of the vulnerability and impact, I immediately contacted my team lead and then uh, the client's primary point of contact, right? And then it will shortly bypass our usual end of engagement reporting process, right? So secure communication was done. Right. So I made sure all the communication about the vulnerability was done through encrypted channels to prevent any potential interception. Right. Then we provided proof of concept, the POC. So I created a POC script which demonstrated the vulnerability without actually exfiltrating the sensitive data. And this helped to convey the severity to the client's team. And then we provided mitigation advice as well, right? So I provided immediate and high level mitigation advice to the client, suggesting that they temporarily disable the the patient's portal functionality until a proper fix is implemented, right? So for that, what we did for communicating the findings, I requested a emergency meeting with the uh, s- stakeholders like CISOs, the lead developers, lead representative. During the meeting, I explained the vulnerability in both technical and non-technical terms, making sure all parties they understood the risk. Then I outlined the worst case scenarios, right? Like data breach, violation of HIPAA regulation, then potential lawsuits, right? And it will damage the organization's reputation. Then I quickly prepared a detailed vulnerability report. So it was having a clear description of the vulnerability, the steps to reproduce, the potential impact, and some recommendation for short-term fixes and long-term fixes, right? So that's how I handle the situation. Now, the client took immediate action based on my recommendation, disabled the patient portal. The development team worked around the clock to implement proper access control and input validation. And I remained in the close contact with the client over the next few days to review their fixes and performing validation testing again once the changes were implemented, right? So that's how we'll answer this kind of questions, right? Now, the next question is walk us through your process of conducting a web application pen test, right? What tools you typically use and why? So at each stage, I will be defining that what tools I use. So the very first stage is reconnaissance, right? Now, for reconnaissance, I will use the tools like Nmap for port scanning, right? I will use sublister for subdomain enumeration. I will use Wayback Machine for historical site data, and then I will use Google Docs, right, for sensitive information exposure. Now, why? These tools will help me in building a comprehensive picture of the application's attack surface, and map will find out the open ports, while subdomain enumeration will reveal forgotten or testing subdomains that might be less secure. Historical data can sometimes reveal sensitive information that was previously exposed and now it's not in the web application again. Then the second step I'll take is mapping the application, right? So for that, what I'll use the tools like Burpsuit Professional version, and OWASP Zap, right? So these tools, they allow automated crawling and manual exploration of the application. They will intercept all the requests and responses, and it will provide a detailed map of the application structure and the functionality, right? Then for vulnerability scanning, I'll use Burpsuit, right? Because Burpsuit has inbuilt scanner, right? And then for comprehensive scanning, I can also use Acunetics web vulnerability scanner, right? Or Nessus also I can use. So automatic scanners, what they can do, they can quickly identify common vulnerabilities like excesses or SQL injection or misconfiguration. So they provide a good starting point for deeper and manual testing, right? Then I will do manual testing, right? In manual testing, what tools will be using? I'll use Burpsuit. I will use kind of SQL map for testing SQL injection, right? For API, I'll use Postman, right? And browser developer tools. So manual testing is very crucial for finding in complex vulnerabilities that automated tools might miss. So Burpsuit's various modules like repeater, intruder, they are very invaluable for manipulating the request and analyzing the responses. So that's why we'll be doing that. Then I will be doing if the web application has authentication mechanism. So authentication and session management testing, right? So authentication and session management testing. There, what I'll do, I'll use Burpsuit sequencer for session token analysis. Then I'll be having custom scripts for testing password policies and brute force authentication. So weak authentication can be a critical vulnerability. So these tools, they will help me to assess the strength of the session management and find out the potential authentication bypass methods, right? Then uh, access control testing, right? Now for access control testing, I will be using the Burpsuit extension like Autorize I can use, right? And I can do manual testing with different user roles. So proper access control is very important for protecting the sensitive data, right? So these methods will help me in identifying vertical and horizontal privilege escalation vulnerabilities, right? Then for input validation and sanitization testing, I will be doing. For that, I'll be using a repeater, right? And intruder of verb suit, right? Then I'll use custom payloads for XSS, cross-site scripting, SSTI, server-side template injection, and other injection attacks, right? So input-based vulnerabilities, they are uh, among the most common and dangerous, right? So these tools, they will allow systematic testing for all inputs which are provided, uh, and with various payloads I will be testing, right? Then you will do business logic testing. For business logic testing, you will do manual testing, right? And we'll use Burpsuit for manipulating the request. So business logic flaw, they require the understanding of application's purpose and manually crafting the scenarios that violate the expected behavior, right? Then client side testing. So browser developer tools, right? I will be using then OWASP Zap that we have. It's Ajax Spider I will be using. It has a module Ajax Spider that I will be using, right? Then for API testing, as I said, we'll use Postman, right? For exploring and testing the APIs, we'll use Swagger, uh, if available, and then custom scripts for fuzzing and load testing, right? And for reporting, I will use Burp Suite's reporting feature, custom report templates, or I will use the tool like Dradis, right? So they will provide you clear, actionable report, right? So this is how we will answer this question. And throughout the testing process, I'll use Kali Linux as my primary operating system and various browser extensions for security testing. Git I will be using for version control of custom scripts and tools, and virtual machines or containers for isolating the testing environment, right? That's how you will answer this question. Now let's move to the next one. How experienced are you with the scripting languages like Python or Ruby for custom exploit development? Now it depends from person to person how much they are experienced. So from my perspective, I'll answer that I have extensive experience using Python for custom exploit development and security automation. So I have 5+ years of using Python for security scripting and exploit development. The libraries that I use are request, socket, subprocess for network interaction and system calls. Then I have experience with the security focused libraries of Python as well. SCAPI for packet manipulation, pawn tools for exploit development. Right now, the key areas of focus, right? So what things are there? We have exploit development. So I'm good with writing custom exploits for vulnerabilities discovered during the pen test, developing proof of concept code to demonstrate impact of findings, modifying and improving existing exploit code from sources like exploit db. Then for automation, I also use scripts. So I'll create scripts to automate repetitive testing tasks, building tools to parse and analyze the large data set from scans or logs, or develop custom plugins for Burp Suite, right? For web application testing, for fuzz parameters, for fuzz testing, I use uh, Python, right? For network protocol analysis, I will use SCAPI to craft some custom packets for protocol testing, right? Post exploitation, I'll develop custom backdoors, command and control communication channels using this script. So while my primary focus has been Python, I also have working knowledge of Ruby, particularly in the context of Metasploit module development. So I've created and modified several Metasploit modules for specific engagement. And I'm always eager to expand my scripting skills to adapt new challenges for any given project. So I'm comfortable either leveraging existing tools and libraries or developing custom solutions from scratch as needed, right? So that's how you'll answer this question. Now let's move to the next question. Explain how you would differentiate between a false positive and true positive when you are using automated vulnerability scanning tools. Okay, so how will I answer this question? First, I'll understand the context. First, I ensure I have the thorough understanding of the target system, including the architecture of the target, the technologies used, the business purpose. Now, this is very crucial for assessing the plausibility of the reported vulnerabilities. Then, I will do manual verification. Now, manual verification means for every significant finding reported by the automated scanner, I will manually reproduce the steps to trigger the vulnerability. I will analyze the application's response to verify if it aligns with the expected behavior of the reported vulnerability. Right. Then I will analyze the evidence. I carefully review the evidence provided by the scanners, the request and response data, any payloads that we have used, any specific conditions that triggered the alert, right? Then cross-referencing multiple tools, right? So I often use multiple scanning tools and compare the results. So a vulnerability detected by multiple tools is more likely to be a true positive, right? Then I'll understand the vulnerability. So I ensure I have a deep understanding of the reported vulnerability, its root cause, how it's typically exploited, common mitigations or fixes, right? So this knowledge will help me in assessing whether the report issue makes sense in the context of the target application, right? Then I'll consider the application's logic as well. So I evaluate whether the vulnerability which was found, it aligns with the application's functionality and logic or not. Some scanners, they might flag issues that while technically correct, but they are not exploitable due to application specific constraints, right? So that I will check. Then I'll do testing with different payloads, like for issues like XSS or SQL injection. I test with multiple payloads beyond what scanner used. So it helps me in confirming if the vulnerability is genuine and exploitable in real world scenarios, right? And then I'll be checking for common false positive triggers. So I'm aware of scenarios that lead to false positives, right? Dynamic content mistaken for excesses, right? Error messages which are misinterpreted as SQL injection vectors, version number which mismatches, leading to incorrect CV assignments, right? I'll analyze the impact as well. I'll assess the real world impact of the vulnerability. A true positive should have a tangible security impact on the system, right? So these are the things that I'll be using. So by following this approach, I can differentiate between true and false positive, making sure I report only actionable and verified vulnerabilities to the clients. So this process will not only improve the quality of my deliverables, but it will also build trust and credibility with the clients, right? Now let's move on to the next question. In a time constrained penetration testing engagement, how you prioritize your targets and manage your time effectively. So we call it asset prioritization, right? Now, in a time constrained pen test, effective prioritization and time management are crucial, right? So first I will do scope analysis and asset prioritization. Right. So I will quickly review the scope to identify the critical assets, then prioritize the targets on the basis of potential business attack or impact or likelihood of vulnerabilities, right? Like your internet facing systems or legacy systems, value to an attacker, like system holding the sensitive data, right? Then I will do rapid initial reconnaissance. I will use fast scanning tools like Nmap to optimize the settings. Uh, then I will employ mass scan for quick port discovery across the large IP ranges. Then I will use automated subdomain enumeration tools. Then I will focus on high value or quick win scenarios, like target the low hanging fruit, which we say. Now it can lead to quick and high impact findings. Look for common misconfiguration, outdated software, or known vulnerabilities, right? Then if effective use of what automated tools is very necessary. So I will run automated vulnerability scanners early in the process, right? Then targeted manual testing I will perform. Now, what is targeted manual testing? I'll focus manual efforts on critical system and unique application logic. I'll prioritize testing for authentication mechanism, access control, or sensitive functionality, right? Then continuous triage and reprioritization, right? So regularly reassess priorities based on the findings. Be prepared to pivot quickly if a promising lead is discovered, right? Time boxing I will do, right? Allocate specific time blocks for different testing phases or targets. Set strict time limits for exploring potential vulnerability to avoid going down the rabbit holes, right? Efficient documentation I will do. Team coordination should be there, so clearly I will divide the responsibility among the team members, then maintain frequent brief communication to avoid duplication of effort, right? Then client communication, like establish clear channels for quick client interaction, seek clarification on scope or targets, prioritize if needed, right? So these are the things that I will be doing for prioritizing in a time constrained pen test, that I have to give the report in 2 weeks. So then how to prioritize everything? Perfect. Next question. How will you collaborate with other team members during a large scale penetration testing project? Okay. So collaboration is a very important process of, and it is very useful when you have any large scale pen test project, right? So first there will be nation planning and coordination, right? There will be some kickoff meetings to make sure everyone understands the project scope and objectives, right? Then I will clearly define their roles and responsibilities, right? Then I'll create communication channels. So there will be a dedicated communication channel like Microsoft Teams I will be using, or Slack will be using for real-time discussion. Set up regular video calls for more in-depth discussions, right? Then there will be task management, right, which is very important. Now task management will utilize project management tools like Jira or Trello to track the task and the process, right? Regularly update my assigned task and review others updates, right? Flag any blockers or issues for team awareness, right? Then there should be knowledge sharing, right? Document and share the findings, the methodologies, and useful resources in a central repository, right? Conduct a brief knowledge sharing session on the specific techniques or tools that you are uh, proficient in, right? Then there should be collaborative tools, right? So you should use collaborative tools, note taking tools like HackMD for real time information sharing, right? Then regular check-ins, so participate in daily stand-ups to discuss progress, plans, and any challenges, right? Engage in a weekly more comprehensive team meetings for deeper dives into the findings and the strategies, right? Then regularly review other team members' findings to make sure the quality and consistency is there, right? Then you should offer a constructive feedback and be open to receive the same from the others, right? There should be centralized reporting, so contribute to a centralized report, making sure my section aligns with overall structure and tone, right? Tool sharing, right? Share custom scripts or tools I develop with the team, right? Integrate my tools with others work to for improved efficiency, right? Then cross functional collaboration, work closely with the specialist, right? Then continuous improvement, right? Post uh, like you have to participate in the post engagement retrospectives to discuss what worked well and which areas need improvement, right? So these are the things that will help me in collaborating better with the team members, right? Now, next question, can you describe a situation where you had to explain complex vulnerabilities and their potential impact to non-technical stakeholders? Okay, so the answer will be um, like how I will answer if you are asking this question to me, that I have encountered this situation several times in my career, but one particular instance it stands out. It involved explaining a complex web application vulnerability and its potential impact to a group of non-technical executives at a large e-commerce company. Right. So during a pen test of the company's e-commerce platform, I discovered a vulnerability in secure direct object reference combined with a business logic flaw in the order processing system. So that vulnerability could allow an attacker to view and modify the user's order, including changing shipping address or accessing credit card information. So what I did, I prepared a clear, jargon-free summary of the vulnerability. Then I created visual aids, including flowcharts of the normal versus exploited process. And then I prepared a safe demonstration of the vulnerability. So I began the meeting by explaining my role and the purpose of the pen test. I emphasized that finding vulnerability is positive as it allows proactive security improvement. I compared the vulnerability to a physical retail scenario, that imagine if in your retail store every customer was given a receipt with a unique order number. Now imagine if someone could simply change that number on their receipt to see or modify any other customer's details, regardless of who they are, right? So that was my analogy which I gave. Now, then I explained the technical concept in very layman terms, that in your online store, when a customer views their order, the website checks a number and the web address to decide which order to show. However, it's not properly checking if the person requesting to see the order is actually the right customer for that or not, right? Then I showed the sanitized live demonstration of how easy it was to access and modify others' orders, and I highlighted the sensitive information which was exposed, including like credit card numbers or shipping address, right? Now I explained the business risk also. So an attacker can redirect high value orders to different addresses, and it can lead to unauthorized access to customer data, which may violate data protection regulations like GDPR or CCPA, right? Then I encouraged the questions throughout, and provided clear, patient answers, used additional analogies as needed to clarify the points, right? Then I reinforced that finding this issue before malicious attackers was a positive outcome and commended their proactive approach to security testing, right? And that's how you will answer this question. Now, next, the last question, how do you stay updated with the latest vulnerabilities and exploits and hacking techniques? So, what will be your answer? So, for that, you can give the answer that uh, I follow security news and alerts. I regularly check security news sites like Hacker News, Krebs on Security, Bleeping Computer. I subscribe to vulnerability alert services from US CERT, NVD, National Vulnerability Database, and major vendors, right? Then I also have active participation in online communities. I'm active on platforms, right, like Reddit's NetSec, RNetSec, or R Ask NetSec. I participate in information security forums like Discord channels, right? Twitter and social media. So I follow security researchers, hackers, and organizations on Twitter, right? Uh, then RSS feeds and newsletters. So RSS reader to aggregate blogs from security researchers and companies. I subscribe to curated security newsletters like SANS News Bytes or Tau Security. Right. I listen to podcasts like Darknet Diaries or Risky Business. I attend webinars which are hosted by security vendors and research organizations. Right. Then I aim to attend major security conferences like Black Hat, DEF CON, or RSA when possible. I watch recorded talks from conferences if I can attend in person, right? I use platforms like Hack the Box and Try Hack Me to practice new techniques. I take relevant courses on platforms like Offensive Security and SANS Institute and Infosectrain for that, right? And I regularly review papers from academic journals and conferences in the security field, right? I follow prevent servers from RXIV for cutting edge research, right? I do OSN to find out more information. Then bug bounty programs, I participate in bug bounty programs, and also I read the reports of other professionals who have uh, given the bounties, right? So that's how you will answer this question, right?